One religious figure that we all know who understood that that's how reality works is the man that we call Jesus Christ. In the 4 canonical Gospels, Jesus goes from town to town to spread his message. And along the way, he performs a lot of healings. He heals people that are sick or crippled, blind, mute, possessed, people that have leprosy, and other conditions. If you've ever read the New Testament, there's something rather curious that Jesus always does whenever he performs a healing. He always makes sure to clarify to the people that he heals that healing never actually came from the external circumstances, and it never came from Jesus himself. In other words, it's not that Jesus touched them and that's why they were healed. Instead, the presence of Jesus accentuates within them a very strong belief that they can be healed. And it's that belief that heals them rather than Jesus himself. In Matthew 9:22 and Mark 5:34, the same story is told of a woman that suffers from chronic bleeding. And she's instantly healed when she touches the cloak of Jesus Christ. In both stories, when Jesus feels that his cloak has been touched and understands what's been happening, he turns around to the woman and he says, "Daughter, your faith has healed you." He says this in a context where it's assumed by the woman and by everyone that it was Jesus himself who healed her. In Luke 17:19, there is a similar story. A group of men who had been suffering from leprosy, they run into Jesus and they believe that he can heal them. So they approach him and they plead with him that he heal them. And so he directs them to go and meet with the priests. And when they respond to his command and they do that, they're instantly cleansed. One of them comes back to Jesus and he throws himself at his feet. And in response to this, Jesus says, "Your faith has made you well." In this story, this man who has just been healed is extremely emotional. The story says that he runs back to Jesus and he throws himself at his feet, like I said, and is essentially displaying immense gratitude for Jesus for healing him. And it's against this context that Jesus' words are very, very telling, because they serve the purpose of clarifying to this man where the healing came from. In Mark 10:52 and Luke 18:42, we have another story of a blind man. This man tries so hard to get to Jesus because he believes that Jesus can heal him, but people rebuke him. Eventually, Jesus calls on him to come forward, and so he does. Jesus heals him, as the story goes, and then once again clarifies to him, "Your faith has healed you." In Matthew chapter 9, there is a very similar story, probably meant to be the same story, except that this time there is 2 blind men rather than 1 who approach Jesus, and they ask him to heal them. There's more details in this story that are very telling. Before performing the healing, Jesus explicitly asks them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" And when both men say yes, instead of instantly declaring that they are healed, Jesus instead says, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." And then both men are healed. And the implication there is that they believed that the healing is possible, and that's why they were healed. Jesus says something very similar in another healing that's reported in Matthew chapter 8. There, Jesus enters Capernaum, and a centurion comes to him and tells him that one of his servants is paralyzed and is lying in deep pain at home. And he asks Jesus to heal the servant. The centurion then kind of gives a brief speech, kind of a poetic speech, expressing his deep belief that Jesus is capable of healing this servant. And in response to that, Jesus is impressed with his faith. Once again, instead of taking responsibility for the servant's healing, Jesus says the following instead. Go and let it be done just as you believed it would. The centurion goes home, and of course the servant is healed, and the implication there that he believed that the healing would take place, and that is the cause for the healing. In Mark 5:36 and in Luke 8:50, Jesus says a very similar line to a synagogue leader. Now, this synagogue leader comes to Jesus Christ because his daughter is very sick at home, essentially on the verge of death. And he asks Jesus to come home with him to heal the girl. On their way to the house, people meet the man and they tell him that his daughter has already died. And that's when Jesus turns around to the synagogue leader and says something very telling. He says, "Don't be afraid, just believe." The reason why this line is telling is because it implies that the man's internal belief that the healing is possible is very crucial for the healing to take place. Now, if healing comes from the internal, very strong belief in the possibility of being healed, and if Jesus' role, as he himself understood it, was to only arouse and bring to the forefront these strong beliefs in oneself, it follows that if Jesus were to meet someone who wanted to be healed, but did not on the inside truly believe in the possibility of being healed, it follows that a healing cannot possibly take place there. The Gospels talk about that. In Matthew 13:58, Jesus goes back to his hometown of Nazareth, and something kind of unexpected happens there. He did not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith.